Thank you for tuning into another video from JRM Recaps. Spoilers ahead. The year is 1995, and we begin this story on a dark and rainy night in London. The young family, comprised of Eleanor, the matriarch, her son Nick, sister Felicity, and her niece Astrid. The family make their way to the front desk of a five-star hotel, soaking wet from the rain. When Eleanor mentions her reservation and requests the key to her suite, both the clerk and manager deny her entry and tell her she does not have a reservation. She insists that she spoke to someone on the phone, but realizes the men are lying when they tell her that the family has stumbled upon a very prestigious hotel and that her family should look for places in Chinatown. Insulted, but not defeated, Eleanor decides to call her husband. When she returns, she is met with resistance once again, but this time she is met in the lobby by the hotel manager, who proceeds to inform the staff that the young family has decided to purchase the hotel and will be the new owners. Before making their way to their rooms, Eleanor takes one final look at the clerk and manager and orders them to start mopping because the floors are very muddy, and then leaves. Fast forward to New York City in 2018. We meet Rachel Chu, an economics professor, who, after lecturing her students, decides to get a bite to eat at a local diner with her boyfriend Nick. While there, Nick lets Rachel know that his best friend from Singapore is getting married, and he would like her to come with him. He will be the best man at the wedding, and their families are very close, so he admits it would be the perfect opportunity for his family to meet her. While discussing the matter, they are spotted by women from the Asian community blog known as Radio 1 Asia. One of the girls walks by and snaps a picture of the two of them and uploads it to the web. Within seconds it goes viral across the community and makes its way to his mother, Eleanor, and her sisters. After a brief discussion amongst themselves, Eleanor decides to call her son to find out more about his mystery girlfriend, and confirm if he will be bringing her to the wedding. In preparation for the wedding, Rachel and her mom, Carrie, decide to go dress shopping. While there, she brings up the fact that Nick rarely speaks about his family to her. The two come to the conclusion his family may be poor, and he may be embarrassed because of it. Carrie then stresses the importance of making a good impression. Rachel believes there is no chance they are not accepting of her, but her mother quickly reminds her that although she looks Chinese and speaks Chinese, her upbringing was in America, which makes her different. Once at the airport, Rachel is surprised to find out that they are flying first class for the trip. What's even more shocking, Nick reveals that his family is extremely well off. He then begins to give a quick overview of family and relatives. There is his cousin Alistair Chen, who is a big-shot Taiwanese filmmaker. Alistair is dating his lead actress, Kitty Pong, who we learn is a horrific actress. Then there is Alistair's brother Eddie, a banker who is married to Fiona. They have 3 children, and he is obsessed with their family image being perfect. During a photo shoot, he once criticized Fiona's dress choice because it was only good enough for Hong Kong Vogue and not the American Vogue magazine. Finally, there is Astrid, whom Nick describes as being a top-tier philanthropist, fashion icon, and an overall sweetheart. The couple finally land in Singapore and are then met by Colin, Nick's best friend who is getting married, and his fiancée Araminta. They decide to take a detour around the city so they can go sightseeing and try some of the local food and drinks. While sitting down, the group starts conversing about numerous topics that help break the ice and create a very welcoming environment for Rachel. At one point, Araminta pulls Rachel aside for a side conversation and lets her know she has never seen Nick so happy before, and attributes his positivity to her, which makes Rachel smile. The next day, Rachel decides to meet her old roommate from college, Peek Lin Go. Peek Lin is a very energetic and free-spirited woman who is very fashionable. She also has no filter and will generally blurt out the first thing that comes to mind. Rachel meets Peek Lin's parents and 3 siblings, who are very outgoing and welcoming, but border a little on the crazy side. While having a light-hearted conversation, the father tells his teenage son that he should go after a woman like Rachel, to which she jokingly responds that she is taken. When she reveals that she is dating Nick Young, the family is dumbfounded, and lets her know that they are the richest family in Singapore, and rank up there in the world. Feeling a bit intimidated, Rachel lets Peek Lin know that she has a dinner party to attend at Nick's grandmother's estate. Being the good friend that she is, and hoping the Youngs extend an invite to her as well, Peek Lin decides to find an appropriate dress for the occasion to help her fit in, and offers to drive her to the party. Once they arrive at the address, the two girls are frightened by a pair of guards at the front gate. Rachel gives her name, but they do not say a word to her, but eventually open the gates to let them in. Once inside, the two girls are in awe at the sheer size and beauty of the estate. Waiting at the front door is Nick, and when he sees Rachel he makes sure to let her know how beautiful she looks. Rachel then introduces Nick to Peek Lin. Nick extends an invite to her, and Peek Lin politely declines at first, not trying to seem so desperate, but quickly takes the second offer knowing the invite won't last forever. She scurries to the trunk of her car where she has a stash of dresses for any occasion. She grabs the bag labeled cocktail dress and follows Nick and Rachel inside. Once inside, Peek Lin splits from the group to get dressed, and Nick brings Rachel to meet his mother Eleanor first. They find her in the kitchen overseeing the staff. Once introduced, Rachel is not sure how to broach the situation and goes in for an awkward hug. From there, she is questioned about her career and looked down upon since she is a professor instead of a businesswoman or something more ambitious. She is continually looked down upon since she does not come from wealth as she meets some of the older family. Eventually, they make their way to the bar where Rachel reflects on how bad of a first impression she must have made. To make matters worse, she accidentally spills wine all over Nick's shirt. Not the slightest bit upset, Nick decides to go to his room to find a new shirt, while Rachel stays with his cousin she just met, Oliver. Peek Lin finally meets back up with her friend and is introduced to Oliver. The two hit it off instantly due to their love for fashion. Elsewhere, Astrid finds Michael wrapping up a business call in a one-off room. She brings food for both of them to enjoy. Michael realizes he does not have any utensils to eat with, so quickly leaves to find some. While gone, his phone starts going off. Worried that he may be missing an important call, Astrid looks to see who it's from to inform Michael, but instead sees a text from another woman that reads, "The bed feels empty without you." Next, everyone meets outside for the main event to see the Tanhua plants bloom since they only bloom for less than a day. Here, Rachel meets Nick's grandmother, who is the first member of the family to be accepting of her and not judge her. The next day, everyone meets at a central location to begin the bachelor and bachelorette festivities. Before Nick and Rachel can say their goodbyes, Rachel is dragged away by Araminta to meet her friends. She meets Amanda Ling and the two quickly hit it off. The bachelor party is revealed to take place on an old freight ship that's been remodeled to be a nightclub with hot tubs and a dance floor. At some point throughout the night, a group of guys start talking, and one of the guys comes out and starts criticizing Nick for choosing Rachel. She does not come from wealth, so he looks down on her and tells Colin that his own family wouldn't have accepted Araminta were she not from a wealthy family herself. One of the boys even goes far enough to insult Rachel's physical appearance, to which Colin quickly grabs Nick and de-escalates the situation. The two of them decide they need to get off the ship as soon as possible. We transition to the bachelorette party where Rachel and the group have private access to the bride's family-owned island, where they can go on a free shopping spree and visit the spa. Amanda and Rachel are enjoying each other's company throughout the shopping spree, but during the spa treatment Amanda drops the act and subtly reveals her true intentions. She opens up about how she and Nick used to date, and how the mom wanted them to get married so badly, and how frustrating it must be to have the whole Young family against her. She even goes on to say how much they love and miss Amanda. This upsets Rachel and she storms out of the spa. Amanda then sends a mass text to the other girls and prompts them to make nasty remarks about Rachel as she walks by, making sure she feels unwelcome. We find that Nick and Colin were able to escape the bachelor party and make their way to a secluded area in the water. Nick reveals his intentions to Colin when he shows him an engagement ring. Colin is excited for his friend at first, but then comes back to the realization of the situation and starts to lecture Nick. Nick was supposed to come home the previous year and take over the family business, but decided against it and stayed in New York. This upset his family greatly, and Colin fears that proposing to Rachel would send a message that he is willing to leave behind his lineage and his inheritance for her, and could put them over the edge. Back at the bachelorette party, Astrid and Rachel are sitting on the beach talking. They are keeping their distance from the other girls and enjoying each other's company. However, Astrid reveals that Michael is having an affair. This upsets her greatly, but Rachel quickly embraces her and the two sit near a fire for the rest of the night. When Rachel and Nick finally reunite, she tells him about the awful experience with Amanda and the other women, and is upset that he never mentioned anything about Amanda or his past. Nick quickly explains that he felt none of it mattered since it was so long ago, and he has moved on completely. To make it up to her, he decides to bring her to Eleanor's house so that she can learn how to make dumplings using the Young family dumpling recipe. Next we see the yeoh family gathered around a table making dumplings. Rachel then notices Eleanor's ring, to which Eleanor responds that Nick's father had it custom made for their proposal. Eleanor then makes a patronizing remark about Rachel not feeling the same way about her old-fashioned traditions. Later, as Rachel is trying to find her room, Eleanor clarifies that the ring her husband gave her was made only because Nick's grandmother did not initially approve of Eleanor for her son, but eventually came around. However, Eleanor clearly states to Rachel that she doesn't think Rachel is good enough for her son, Nick, and then leaves. Following this encounter, Rachel has lunch with Peek Lynn and says that she may skip the wedding because the whole situation is very overwhelming, and she is concerned that it may cause issues among the Young family. Peek Lynn convinces her otherwise, and brings Rachel back to her house. With the assistance of Oliver, they pick out the perfect outfit for the wedding that is sure to turn heads. On the way to the wedding, Michael lets Astrid know that he will have to leave in the coming days for an emergency business trip. She reminds him that their son's birthday is coming up and he will miss it if he leaves, but he doesn't budge. She then confronts Michael about his affair. Michael tries to turn it around on her for making him feel inferior with her constantly buying expensive items, and eventually he gets out of the car and doesn't return, forcing her to attend the wedding alone. Rachel turns up at the wedding and impresses everyone with her dress, and even manages to stun Amanda when she tells her she's in her way. Eleanor and her sisters note that Princess Inton is there, and that she requested a whole row to herself so nobody could bother her. To their surprise, Rachel approaches Inton and talks to her about an article she had read that was written by Inton. Rachel also lets her know how much she admires Inton for how she spent her wealth for great causes, and for giving back to her community. Inton takes a liking to Rachel, and even Nick starts to take notice how great Rachel looks. The wedding then goes on, with Nick telling Rachel during a very emotional ceremony that he loves her and vice versa. Eleanor catches the back and forth between the two and is visibly upset by this. Finally, Colin and Araminta are married. During the reception, we see everyone is having fun dancing and drinking. However, Rachel and Nick are called to meet with Eleanor and Nick's grandmother. Eleanor reveals she hired a private investigator to dig into Rachel's past, and it turns out that Rachel's biological father is still alive when Rachel was told that he was dead. Furthermore, they let her know that Rachel's mother had an affair with another man, became pregnant and then fled to America. Nick is furious at Eleanor. The moment proves to be too overwhelming for Rachel, and she ends up running away and leaving the party. Before she does, she makes sure to tell Eleanor she wants no part of her family. Nick tries to catch her, but she disappears into the party crowd. Rachel ends up walking back to Peek Lynn's house on foot. She stays there for a few days, staying depressed in her bedroom. She lays there not eating or drinking, and has no ambition to leave the bed. The following morning, Rachel is surprised to find her mother, Carrie, show up to the house. When Rachel brings up the matter about her father, Carrie explains that her husband was an abusive man to her, and she tried to get away by staying with a school friend. They eventually fall in love and she ends up pregnant with Rachel. Fearing that her husband would kill them if he found out, Carrie fled to America. She also reveals that it was Nick who called her out of concern for Rachel so she should meet with him and talk one last time. We transition back to Astrid and Michael back at their home. Michael is seen packing his bags to leave, but Astrid lets him know that she has made up her mind. Standing up for herself, she lets Michael know that he can keep their current home, and she will find a place to live out of the 14 buildings she owns in the city. She will also be taking her children with her. She tells Michael she can't expect him to act like a man when he isn't one. She then takes the earrings she bought earlier in the film, the ones she had to hide from Michael, and she proudly wears them, feeling freed and no longer ashamed of her family's wealth. Nick meets with Rachel in the city by the water. He apologizes for everything bad that has happened to her leading up to this moment, and some of the things that were done he cannot forgive them for. He then takes out his ring and proposes to her, telling her he will leave his family and fortune behind so they can start over in New York. At this point, we are uncertain whether or not she says yes. Eleanor goes to a spot downtown where people are playing the Chinese game mahjong after Rachel invites her. Eleanor finds Rachel at a table and sits down to play. She tells Eleanor that Nick proposed to her, but she turned him down because she doesn't want to be the reason he splits from his family. However, she mentions that if he chose his family over her, Nick might spend the rest of his life resenting Eleanor. Eleanor then says only a fool folds a winning hand. At the same time, Rachel draws a mahjong tile which would complete her hand and win her the game. She then replies that she loves Nick so much that she is willing to sacrifice her happiness for his own, and to remember that when Nick finds someone else in the future, one that Eleanor approves of and is happily married to, that it was her, just a daughter of an immigrant and a nobody, who made it all possible. She then throws the tile away. Eleanor picks it up and wins the mahjong game. Rachel then reveals her hand, letting everyone know she just let Eleanor win, a parallel to the same situation they were speaking about with Nick. She then gets up and leaves with her mother Carrie, who gives Eleanor a hard glare before leaving with her daughter. Rachel and Carrie prepare to leave to go back to New York. She says her goodbyes to Peek Lynn and thanks her for all her hospitality and being a good friend. As the two board the plane to head back to New York, Nick shows up on the plane to try and talk to Rachel. He explains what his ideal proposal would have been, but he doesn't care about that anymore because he loves her so much and would give up his whole fortune just to spend the rest of his life with her. Nick then gets down on one knee and proposes once again on the airplane. This time when he opens the box, it's not the ring she had seen before. It is Eleanor's ring, signifying Nick's mother's approval. Rachel says yes this time. Everyone cheers as she and Nick share a big kiss. Nick tells Rachel that he would like to stay just one more night. Nick later surprises Rachel by throwing an engagement party on a rooftop with all of his friends and family attending with excitement. Eleanor even manages to give Rachel a sincere smile. Rachel and Nick kiss as fireworks explode across the sky. Midway through the credits, Astrid and a man named Charlie Wu share glances, and there appears to be sparks between them, representing good things ahead for Astrid. Thank you for watching our recap. If you enjoyed this video, please be sure to hit the thumbs up button and subscribe for future videos. Also, try some of our other videos displayed on screen.